The auditor will also review IT operations. In the operational related areas, we should look for these areas of potential problems. Frequent errors that keep happening over and over again, for example. A lack of monitoring where nobody's checking the logs, nobody's following up on error codes that come in, which means that even though our systems could be telling us there's a problem, if nobody's watching for it and no one's looking into it, well, that problem could, of course, just be getting worse all the time. We know that many of our systems can generate logs. We have a record of everything that's happened on that system, and we want to make sure that those logs are being retained. We should have a retention period for how long logs will be kept before we maybe overwrite them or delete them. Some logs may need to be kept for a longer time because of legal reasons, but other times we'll keep them because of business reasons or investigative reasons. Unfortunately, because quite often in operations, people find, well, we don't have time to look at them anyway, so they turn them off. Then, if something does happen, we don't even have a log that we can look into to check, well, what happened here? So this is something we should certainly be watching for. Where we don't have the logs that we need, for example, that will allow us now to be able to know what's happening on the system, where the logging has been disabled. And these are certainly, the other thing is, where maybe even if the logging was on, unfortunately, the operators have been deleting then the entries in the logs that maybe make them look bad. So this is where something we do have to look at as well, and that sometimes we'll put our logs into a write once, read many device. So the logs will be retained, and the operation staff actually would not be able to make any type of, should we say, change to the logs themselves. We also need to look at how efficient are we with clearing out any types of trouble tickets. If we have incidents that come in, the users call in because of a problem, we should have a tracking of any type of a trouble ticket and see how quickly that trouble ticket then was resolved and cleared off. If we see that trouble tickets are just accumulating, obviously a backlog like that is an indication for the auditor that we could have some problems in certainly the operations of our IT systems. And this comes into also how quickly do we resolve problems. If we have problems, especially problems that reoccur, one thing that should always happen is if we had a problem, we should document what the problem was. As a part of that documentation then, we are able to use that if that problem was to ever reoccur again in the future. That should help us to be able to resolve that problem much faster. We don't have to reinvent the solution. We already know how to fix that. And so this documentation should speed up, in many cases, problem resolution. If we see that it's taking an inordinate amount of time to clear problems, maybe that's a lack of training. Or maybe that, getting back to what we talked about before, it could be because of poor morale, poor supervision, where management is not then making sure that people are setting their priorities correctly and addressing then any types of problems in a timely and, of course, professional manner. We should also look for things should normally work according to the established process. Where we have an awful lot of, should we say, exceptions, that means that maybe those policies or procedures need some work. It could well be that the policies or procedures are outdated. So it is quite reasonable that we need to take a review of them so that they do reflect how the business should run. So we take a look at exceptions. We look at any situation where we could easily see that maybe that is a symptom of the fact that our operations just are not efficient anymore.